Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I'm Robert Haynes. I'm your host, your guide into the world of TSM. This week is going to be one of our more action-packed weeks. I still think I might be able to get in about 30 minutes, but there's really only one thing to talk about: the TSM roster and what Monday brought. But before that, let's look into some announcements. As a reminder, you can find this show on every platform now, including Apple Podcasts, although it seems like everybody really liked it being on the Game House's YouTube channel. Make sure to go to youtube.com, search The Game House, and you should be able to find us. I don't think we have a specific channel name yet, but this will be up in all areas, including YouTube. So, however you consume your podcasts, go find Talking TSM there. Tell your friends if they are into TSM. And if not, maybe this will help them convert the Church of TSM. Maybe that's what we'll become. Moving on, I said last week that I was working on a special guest for the show, that it would be a player. After talking with the TSM staff, that is going to have to wait a little bit with everything going on. I think they're kind of trying to lock some things down. They don't want things to accidentally slip out or anything like that. So I don't know when. I'm hoping sometime over this offseason that we will get a player. I'm also going to try to work on maybe getting a coach. Would love to get Bjergsen on here, but don't know if that's going to happen. It's really going to just depend on their time and what they're willing to do. So I appreciate them even, considering this. I hope that if they're listening, they will allow somebody to come on and talk, not just to me, but to the fans. I think that this is a medium that we don't get to see very often for players and coaches, especially from TSM and really in the LCS too. It's always such formal interviews and everything else. And I think being able to just casually talk and get to know players is something that maybe fans and everybody else would really like. So I hope to offer that at some point. We will find out. I also want to do a fan guest segment. I've had a couple people, like I said, reach out. They haven't reached back out to me since the last time we talked. I'm hoping that anybody who listens, if you want to, come on the show for a few minutes, talk to me about certain aspects of the team, give me your thoughts, or if you want to just send in comments or questions that you would like answered about TSM, please let me know. I would be happy to do that. So, also you can talk about TGH. You can check out TGH and my coverage of TSM on the Game House's HAUS, by the way, website, where we are doing all things TSM all the time. This week's been a little slower because of all the news that I've had to get out about the whole LCS. I hope to have a couple more pieces out over the next couple days specifically. I've been promising you all my grades on the moves, but they have not been they've not been finalized, which is most of the topic of this podcast this week. So until those are finalized, I can't really give you my full grades on what everything is looking like yet. But no, they are coming. Lastly, on Twitter, go to @TGH Esports, or you can follow me at TGH Robert Haynes, Hanes. Moving on from the announcements, the talk of the day. Oh man, this is going to be something, to say the least. I've got my tea here. I've got my water. I've got stats up. I've got a lot of things up. Wow. So Monday was supposed to be the TSM, well, everybody, the LCS's first day of free agency. Things were supposed to go well. Jacob Wolf was able to do his thing with with Evil Geniuses, which was great. But I think even he felt maybe a little underwhelmed with the amount of news that was truly confirmed. I mean, even the Alfari signing has not been officially confirmed yet. It seems like there are a lot of issues this year, and that's not entirely surprising that things wouldn't be totally ready to go on day one. But we are now 3 days out since this big day, and we still have no idea who is going to be on this TSM roster. I know everybody's going to be like, well, of course we do. We know exactly. It's going to be Huni, Spica, PoE, Double Lift, and Sword Art. Well, also according to Jacob Wolf, things are not going the way that anybody thought they were. The trades for Huni and Lost for EG have not gone through yet because TSM is in a bit of a bind because, well, of a lot of things. Let's just start from the top. So here's how things were supposed to go. Then I'll break down why things might be, well, breaking down. Originally in the day, we heard that TSM's first move, and really the week before we had heard about Power of Evil. We talked about that last week. Don't need to go into too much detail on that, but very excited for when/if they eventually bring him in. Then you look at Huni, and TSM were supposed to be buying out Huni's contract / kind of trading for him. Apparently these are separate deals between him and what's going on with Lost, but originally they're supposed to be buying out Huni and making Huni the next TSM top laner, something that has been met with a myriad of different opinions, good and bad, some optimistic, some pessimistic, some realistic, some idealistic. I'll let you decide on what those are. But then later in the day, we hear that they are also looking at Sword Art, one of the world's finalists, who even recently talked about the fact that he had a lot of respect for Bjergsen. Clearly, he saw that once Bjergsen was retiring, this was his chance before Suning went to the finals. This was in an interview on the main broadcast done by Lar. And, he straight up stated that he was sad about the Bjergsen retirement and that he needed to make his shot, take his best chance at winning a World's Final. Obviously, they fell short to Damwon, but either way, he's a great player. He's worked his way up. He played on Flash Wolves for all those years, the Korean Killers, the team that could come in and was one of the was pretty much the only team outside of the major regions that you always knew were going to just make a run. They were going to beat teams that they shouldn't, in some people's opinion. And so when everybody heard Sword Art TSM, things were generally much happier about the way this team was shaping out, right? Again, Huni, Spica, Power of Evil, Double Lift, and Sword Art. Was that roster going to compete? That's something I want to talk about. That's what I want to look at with this roster. So again, this is going through Monday. Sword Art's not really confirmed. Huni's pretty much confirmed by Jacob. And so we're looking at this roster, and I wanted to actually make a video about it. Or not video, excuse me. I wanted to do an early podcast, but I just felt like there was just something. I was like, until Sword Art or PoE are confirmed, right? Until TSM puts out a video saying, welcome, Huni, PoE. I didn't want to do anything in terms of confirming that was a roster. And I'm glad I didn't, because I really wanted to. I mean, I was ready. I had been up. I had written like 15 or 20 pieces that night. Some that are still waiting on the back end for things to be confirmed. But I wanted to put this out there. But just something didn't feel right. And so, I don't know. Sorry, I'll back up to let's look at what this roster was or might be. This roster is one that competes at least in the top 5, likely in the top 3, and in a very unpopular opinion, probably not in the top 2. And I think that that's for a lot of reasons, to be honest. I don't know that Hooney really brings a lot to this team, necessarily, that Broken Blade couldn't have. There must have been something that clearly happened at Worlds for Broken Blade to be out like this, and for them to feel like they want Hooney instead. I thought Broken Blade and Spica and Bjerg were super close. It even looked like he and Doublelift were very, very close. I don't know what is going on in terms of looking at this roster that they decided to jettison Broken Blade, a young, up-and-coming, excitable, almost second, I guess third face of this team for a lot of people. And now he's gone, potentially. More than likely. I'll get to that in a minute, too. But it's like, why? I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't get why they look at Hooney and they say, all right, Hooney over Broken Blade. There's no doubt. Hooney has talent. Don't get me wrong. And this team, compared to some of the other options that are going to be available should this deal not work out, Hooney is going to be somebody who TSM fans are going to be excited about compared to, again, some of the options that may be available to them if this whole thing falls through. We'll have to see. I don't know. But looking at Hooney again, it's just, I don't know that he's going to be better than Alfari and maybe even Fudge. Maybe his experience gets the better of Fudge early on. But again, I'm going to compare this whole roster to TL and C9. Okay, because that's who their main competition is going to be, right? So you look at that, you maybe give Hooney the slight edge over Fudge just because Fudge is so young. And Alfari definitely probably slaps Hooney, I would think. Now you go to Jungle, right? And you look at Blabber and why am I not remembering who is on TL right now? Brain fart. Give me a second, guys. I cannot believe this. I'm an idiot. Sorry, guys. Oh, Santorin. That's right. Right? Okay. So, again, you look at Spica compared to Santorin and to Blabber. And you think, okay, Spica's upside, his highest that he can be, right? He can definitely compete against both of them. But he's still young. He's still pretty inexperienced. Santorin was the best jungler in the LCS probably all year. Blabber was right up there with them, and then Spica's right there too. But again, TSM likely finishing maybe second, maybe third in that position. Probably closer to third. I think that I will say future-wise, Spica's going to be an absolute stud. Do not get me wrong. And I would love for him to prove me wrong and be the best jungler in the LCS next year. He has that kind of potential. But we have to understand, realistically, he's only had one split in a playoffs, right? Like one full split, playoffs Worlds, but also, that weird playoff situation last year. So he's still pretty young. He's going to need his time. All right, now we look at the mid lane. Jensen and Perks versus PoE. This one is also close, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Perks is going to be, and this one is also not officially confirmed, but it's pretty likely. I would say like 99%, it seems like at this point. But either way, Perks will be the best player in the LCS. Period. Okay? Like there is no question about that. When that man hits US soil, he may even be the best League of Legends players in the entire United States area. Hawaii and Alaska included. Okay? In these great 50 states, the man named Perks, the best player, not just mid laner, but player in the United States. Okay? That is not arguable. Jensen and PoE can battle it out again, second or third. Really just depends. Jensen is probably got the edge there, honestly. So we're looking at, again, to recap, Huni, definitely, well, not definitely, more than likely the third best player. Maybe pushes for second compared to the, again, this is compared to the three. I think there are better. I mean, Someday and Licorice are probably even Impact are better than Huni. It's just that Huni versus Fudge, between the three, what are presumed to be top teams, although that's even a conversation for another day. He's probably third. Spica could push for second. Could push for first. Likely third. PoE could push for second. Definitely is not pushing for first. Likely third. Now we go down to the bot lane. Double lift, right? Double lift versus tactical and Sven. Out of all of the matchups, this one, in my opinion, is probably the closest one. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's the one that has the most variance. There's no clear number one here in my mind. If Doublelift gets back into form, Doublelift probably dominates both of them. He has in the past. If not, he could very easily end up second or third too. This one I don't know. This one's similar to Tactical and Spica, being Spica in terms of Tactical has the potential to be the first best of these three. He could also be the third best. It really just depends. And so I'm going to leave that one up to everybody else. That one is maybe a wash. Even the supports are going to be tough. But I do think there's a very clear, if Sword Art joins, I think there's a very clear pecking order currently. I would see it as Core JJ, Sword Art, and then Vulcan. And even that one is pretty close. Vulcan is really solid. I don't think he's better than Core JJ. I think Sword Art, obviously being a Worlds finalist, makes him better than Vulcan. That's why I see Vulcan probably a third. The Core JJ Sword Art would be interesting. That's for sure. I don't know. I don't know what would happen with that. We'd have to let it play out over, a full season. But that one could be pretty close. So, again, the top side of the map for TSM specifically is pretty not favorable for them. And it's not specifically on Spica and PoE. It is not a hit on them personally. They are good. Do not get me wrong. They are very good players. It's just that TL and C9 went out and got people like Perks to kind of push things forward. So you have that. And again, when you look at this team, and then you got the bot lane that is tough to for sure say anything, because we just truly, it depends on Doublelift. What is Doublelift going to do for this year as a player? And if he's just average like he was last year, then this team is they're just going to have to be fighting for third. And people aren't going to like to hear that. But guys, I'm sorry. That's just how it looks with this roster. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really, really hope I'm wrong. I hope that Huni finds his Worlds form, even, his Fnatic form, and just pops off. I hope that Spica makes a huge jump and surpasses everybody else in the jungle, pushes for that top spot. Again, I even think Huni at his best is probably still second to Alfari, but I could be wrong. PoE, maybe Perks takes time to adjust, and TSM are able to take advantage of that, and maybe Jensen still can't figure things out against TSM, and PoE becomes the next Bjergsen for him and gives him headaches. I would be hopeful. That'd be great. I don't know if that's going to happen. I hope that Doublelift figures his shit out, pardon my French, and really becomes the player that we all want to see him be, and we all love him for being in the past. And then maybe Sword Art ends up coming over and making Core JJ look like JJ. Maybe. Core hasn't been to World's Finals in a while, and Sword Art has. So, again, if I'm being an optimist, sure, this team could push for a first or second spot. I feel like if I'm being a realist and looking at what we know about most of these players, Spica and Sword Art are truly the unknowns. The other three, we have a pretty good idea of who they are. And I just don't know that it's enough to push for a first or second. They could make a run in the playoffs. Any team can do that. Once you get there, any team could. But if you look at just throughout the season, I don't know. I'm not confident. But now we move on to the news that came out yesterday about things starting to fall apart. To recap or tell people for the first time, apparently because Sword Art is trying to come over, obviously from playing in China, he's from Taiwan, that's considered to be a part of China. For some reason, taxes-wise, if he were to come over to the United States, he would be taxed twice on his income. Once from the U.S. and once from China. I don't know exactly the specifics or the legalities of it, but that's what Jacob Wolf was saying last night, and that's bad. That's a real thing for players. I can tell you, as somebody who follows traditional sports, a lot of the time, I don't believe there's an income tax in Canada. So when players go there, they're getting their full amount of money, not what, with the United States where they get taxed for it. And so because of that could be a real deterrent for Sword Art. That getting double taxed to come over to a new region, they'd have to pay him a lot to make him feel like that's worth it. Right? So there's still a good chance they figure it out from what it sounds like. But if that falls through, then apparently the Huni DL2 EG might be nixed, because apparently if they don't get Sword Art, then Doublelift may retire, or at least if they don't get some sort of Korean or somebody support, somebody big, because apparently he doesn't want to play with either an NA support or a young up-and-coming support, which is, I guess, understandable, a little selfish considering what this team has gone through to bring him, but I understand it from his point of view, especially if he was considering retiring before the season. So you've got, if the Sword Art deal falls through, then the Doublelift situation becomes an issue. Then it looks like TSM is going to want to promote Lost, and that apparently, even though it's a separate deal with Evil Geniuses, affects them bringing over Huni, and then Power of Evil has still somehow not been announced. Wow. What in the world is going on right now? This is crazy. This is nuts. This Sword Art thing is a big deal. I will tell you, it's going to be hard to convince a player. They're going to have to up their offer, more than likely, especially if he's going to get double taxed. Or they're going to have to find a loophole legally, and that's going to take some time. I would hope that they had been working on that before now. Maybe they haven't had a chance to. But that's tough. That's really tough for TSM and for Sword Art. And apparently Doublelift and Evil Geniuses. It's like again, I talked about it maybe even 2 episodes. Once dominoes start to fall, right? Like once the perks thing fell into place, it seemed like everything else was kind of figuring itself out. Now I don't know. Like what are TSM going to do, especially in the top lane, right? So like if you look at this team, well, and I guess that's support too. Like a team of Speak Up, Power of Evil, and Lost is not a bad team. Like seriously, people, go look at Lost stats. Go look at Lost's playing in general. Him and Treats were popping off in Academy, okay? I think Lost comes in and does a fantastic job on Evil Geniuses or TSM. I think he's got the potential to be another FBI. I'm not going to say that he's going to definitely be another FBI, but he has that kind of potential. So what would the team look like? They'd have to go young in support more than likely. I doubt they'd get Lehans. I think he's the last. Lehans and Effort, I believe, are both still available from Korea. But that said, if TSM were to get Lehans or Effort, I think Effort would keep Double Lift. I don't know that Lehans would, but I could be wrong. Because top option Carrier just signed with T1, thus Effort is available apparently. I don't know that Life has signed either, actually. So we'll see. But it looks like there might be other options in the support. But even with Lost, they could look even, at somebody like Chime, maybe, from Golden Guardians Academy. He's pretty solid. They could look at, Diamond would have been a great option, but he is now over at FlyQuest. So options are pretty limited. Maybe they bring back Biofrost if they stay with Lost. I don't know, but it's kind of tough. More importantly, we got to look at the top lane. If they don't get Huni, Impact would be potentially available, apparently. Although we don't know that for sure. But that would be interesting if Evil Geniuses just decide to keep Huni, then Impact would probably become TSM's top choice. Don't love it. Don't hate it. He's super consistent. He's a solid player. I talked to him even, just a couple months ago. He's a great person. He would bring a lot of life to this team. I just think that if this team is going to go young with Spica and Lost, I think they should just go young completely. I even would consider not signing PoE. I know that's super not something people want to hear, and give Evolved a chance, because I don't even know that PoE would like to play on a team of all young players, but oh god, things are just in such shambles if this Sword Art deal apparently does not happen. Anywho, looking at the top lane, they could look at maybe Arome. It looks like Arome from Mad Lions is on his way out. I've not heard about him signing with anybody. He was solid for Mad Lions. He is still pretty young. I think he's only 22, 23. He would be a nice player for TSM to bring in. Sure, it would take up an import slot, and then that could be a little bit of an issue. I don't remember. Does Power of Evil take up a residency slot? I think he does, unfortunately. Yeah, his residency is still Europe, so he takes one of the slots. So Rome, maybe. The other couple options that are interesting, Nuguri, however you say it. I mean, you personally, I say Nuguri. He is available, which is shocking considering he literally just won a Worlds Final. But if there was any option that was going to be potentially better than Sword Art, Nuguri would be that. He's still young. He's a hell of a player. And I don't really think any TSM fan would be upset if Nuguri came over from South Korea. They'd have to pay him a buttload too, but at least he probably wouldn't be double taxed. I don't know. I think that would be... I think if TSM are... If the wins are starting to change and Sword Art's not looking likely and they need a top laner and Nuguri just made himself available on Monday, I would already be talking to him. Be like, hey, don't sign yet. We might make you a pretty ludicrous offer because, we don't know what's going on with the rest of our roster right now. But if we have another import slot available, I mean, honestly, guys, like, listen to this. If TSM can go get Nuggery and they have a Nuggery, Spica, Power of Evil, Double Lift or Lost, I don't know, and then Chime or even Broken Blade, bot lane, Zazel, potentially. This team is good. Like, Nuggery gives them that much more of an advantage. He is one of the players that would instantly make the Alfari signing not as good. Alfari would still be top tier, but Nuggery is one of the players that would be able to challenge, if not beat out Alfari in the top lane. They could also keep BB. That's another option. I know he takes up an import slot, and I know people would rather maybe somebody like Arome or Nuggery. But, like, Broken Blade is solid, guys. He's better than Huni. They haven't made the deal with Schalke official yet. I mean, again, it's been reported. But with everything in flux, why not look at keeping Broken Blade? Other options, if they needed to still go with a non-import Tapoon, or Topoon, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I think it's Tapoon. Played for Legacy, got some experience at Worlds, actually is South Korean. I don't know if he has, I feel like he might have residency in South Korea. Oh, nope, his is, in South Korea. So even though he's only ever played for teams in Australia competitively, he's played for the Dire, Cubs, Mammoth, and Legacy. He's been one of their better top laners, so I don't know. Maybe if they can find a way to work around his residency. Again, I'm just looking at potential options here. And then another one that could be interesting is Doran from DRX. He came over with Chovy from Griffin. He's an interesting option too. But, yeah, I mean, this one's tough, fam. I don't know what's going to happen right now. We may have to just accept that this roster is not going to be the way that we thought it was. And that's good or bad, right? I mean, for some people, if Huni's not on this team, they might think that literally any other option that's currently out there might be better. I don't know. It depends on your personal opinions. I think that he brings some sort of stability, and I think that by midway through the season, TSM are going to know which Huni they're getting and can potentially make some moves based on how other teams are doing. That's going to be one of the beauties of a season-long thing. Instead of having breaks in the middle, teams about halfway through, if they're not doing well, might be more willing to trade some players to get some money, or, we'll see what happens. But, what if the 100 Thieves just are falling on their face, or FlyQuest decide, hey, we really want to go young, right? That could mean that people like Licorice or Someday could be available. If TSM's fighting for a spot and Huni's not performing, you go get one of those players maybe if they're available. Again, I'm not saying they will be, but if they're available. This one's tough, fam. This one's really tough. I really thought TSM had a roster put together. I liked all of it. Personally, I liked all of it except for the Huni part. I am cautiously optimistic about Huni, but the rest of it I liked. I like Spica, Power of Evil, Broken Blade, and Sword Art. I think that's a good team. Again, are they competing for a top 1 or 2? I don't know. Personally, I don't think so. I would love to be wrong. But either way, we have got a pretty interesting rest of the offseason, especially, I would assume, this week and next week. I feel like we'll have a good idea of what's going on by probably even early next week. I think they'll probably take the weekend, try to get everything figured out, And if things aren't looking so good, then we might start hearing some stuff even sooner. Keep your ears to the ground. Keep your eyes open. TSM rebuild. And it is still a rebuild. Whatever your definition of rebuild might be, it's still a rebuild, people. It is. This team is figuring itself out witut Bjergsen. There is a possibility that Doublelift is gone too. Thus, only Spica, the player who got one split and a playoff on this team, would be the quote-unquote veteran of TSM. Not as a person, but like the last man standing, I guess. So, I would caution you to stay optimistic, but also look at the realistic possibilities that this may be a full rebuilding year. This may not be what we are used to as TSM fans with a team competing consistently. We may have to be happy with a third-place team. That makes it to Worlds. Ultimately, we should just want to make Worlds and see where things go from there. I don't know about an LCS title. We're way too far off, especially if they're only doing one season instead of two splits. We're way too far off. We don't know, right? I will even say Cloud9 or TL could internally implode, right? Maybe things don't work out. Maybe some players don't like each other. Maybe some players underperform. You know, we all thought TL coming into 2020 was going to just be gangbusters, blowing everybody up again, and they finished 9th. So we will wait for our expectations until things are official. Once things are official, we can take a really deep dive and figure that out. But I'm a little over the time limit. That's okay. Today was a pretty crazy topic. A lot of things to go over. Again, let me know if there are things that you want me to do, if there are things you want me to improve. I tried to work on my ums and uhs. I know I did a few, but I was catching myself, so hopefully that will make it a little easier for people to listen to. I totally understand. I am used to, I guess, talking like a teacher, where it doesn't matter as much, but I'm on a talk show again. This is it's very exciting. So I'm working on that. Don't know if I'm going to change the title, to be honest. We'll have to see about that one. But everything else is good. Hopefully we'll have a player on in the future. Hopefully we will have one of you on in the future. If you are so inclined, make sure to let me know in the comment section or to reach out on Reddit. I am the Talking TSM Reddit user as well, so reach out if you can. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. As a reminder, the show comes out weekly on Thursdays for your ears holes to enjoy. I'm Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. See you next week.